everyone. So in this panel, we have three dynamic speakers, and we do have to bear a little with Hindi because Jyoti Tai जो हमारे साथ है, वो हिंदी में बात करेंगे, and then I might translate the keywords, and we'll go in the panel. I'll tell the rules, so it will be like everyone will get a certain time. I'll let you know if the time overlaps. And then each person will talk on that topic, and then we'll interlink, and then we will be having a question answer session. So I would like to introduce the panelists. We have Dr. Sheetal Kamble. Dr. Kamble is a co-founder of Tashi organization. Dr. Kamble has majorly worked around caste, gender, religion, violence on Dalit women in the state of Maharashtra, India. She will be majorly talking about political participation and caste-based violence against women. Then we have Professor Bidisha Biswas. She is a professor currently teaching political science at West Washington University. She is also a senior fellow at the Center of Global Cooperation Research, Germany. She will be majorly talking about her research on political activism among Dalit and Bahujan in US. And then हमारे साथ ज्योति मेश्राम है. ज्योति ताई, उन्हें ज्योति ताई भी कहा जाता है. She is majorly famous for saying ज्योति ताई. वो माजी सरपंच रह चुके हैं. She was a former सरपंच from the district of Gadchiroli, Maharashtra, India. Currently, वो internal complaint committee के member है under the Sexual Harassment Act of 2013 under the Panchayati Raj Institution of her district. ज्योति ताई मेजरली अपने जर्नी के बारे में बात करने वाले हैं, जो हाउ एक शेड्यूल कास्ट विमेन बने, हाउ शी बिकेम अ सरपंच, एंड देन उनके एक्सपीरियंसेस जो उन्होंने एज अ सरपंच एक्सपीरियंस किए हैं, एंड कास्ट बेस्ड एट्रोसिटीज जो उनके डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में हुए, एंड देन वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग एंड टेकिंग इट फॉरवर्ड. So thank you for joining today, the panelists. So we'll go ahead with Dr. Sheetal Kamble with the topic. Over to you, Sheetal Tai.
Jai Bhim. I'm audible? Hello?
Yes, Tai. Yes, you are.
Okay. Before I start my presentation, but it's not a presentation, but just giving the quick idea about that, what kind of work I'm doing last 15 years. I'm working on the issue of the violence, and I was placed in the Commissioner Office Mumbai 5 years. I was just dealing with the gender-based violence and domestic violence. And during this process of domestic violence, I realized that I should be work on the caste because I'm the witness of the caste-based violence. When my grandmother was a survival of the caste-based violence, and throughout the year, I was just struggling to understand the caste-based violence. And then very surprising things was happening that the United Nations has never mentioned about the caste, because when caste is added into the violence process, the pattern of violence change, and that was my PhD topic. I collected atrocity cases across the Maharashtra, Western Maharashtra, Vidarbha Marathwada, and the North Maharashtra, and I just try to understand what is exactly the meaning of caste-based violence, and which is need to be heroized in the academy. So when you look at the feminist movement, it's basically talking about the gender, and they are just talking about the intersectionality. But when caste is all the intersection emerge from the caste system, that is the most, which is not in highlighted area, not in academics, and even the discussion. If you go through the Hathras case, I was dealing with the Hathras case. We are the part of the Hathras case, and we realized that when you're talking about any case of rape, you're talking about any gang rapes, when you're talking about any atrocity related to the Dalit women or Bahujan women, the people are saying that don't know. It is just a rape. This is just a violence, but no one recognizing because of the caste. So that is the interesting journey was in, and it was very painful journey also, because I work in a many part of Maharashtra, and during that process also I'm looking, and my next week my book is going to be published. That is how the caste violence emerged through the Dalit women participation. So they're looking at the caste-based inequality and participation in political participation. In the political participation, there are different kinds of a pattern I observe, where the women, as a Dalit woman, who has taken a part of the process of the political process, and she wanted to be highlighted there and asking for their own rights, what kind of violence she faced, and that violence is not related to any gender violence. So you could look at the United Nations, where they're talking about the physical violence, emotional violence, mental violence, but they're not talking about the caste. And the caste violence, there are the different mechanisms. There are the different environment is created for the Dalit. So my whole journey is try to understand the political participation, and it is very interesting journey where women from the Dalit community are more assertive, and their resistant narrative is highlighting why they wanted to be part of the political process. Not because of that they believe in only the Ambedkarite ideology, but they believe that the democratic values, and that democratic values always they are uh, mostly challenging the caste system, and that is the problematic thing for the dominant people in the village. And that is the reason every time when Dalit women is more vocal about their rights, when the Dalit woman is talking about their own rights, asking for the questions, and then the violence has happened. And there is another important just want to experience that how the women are weaponized. They're used as a weapon to threaten the community. And that is my whole understanding and theoretical understanding, where even also I uh, read Ambedkar's writing and speeches, and I realize that Baba Sahib has written a lot of things about the violence, and they have a documentation. So this is documentation is highlighting that we are, this is not in our history that a 10 year 15 years before, or we are just on giving the example that Fairlands is a significant example of the caste-based violence. I think no, before that also the caste-based violence is happening. So in that everywhere where process when atrocity cases was happening, even the political participations in participation process, even the decision making process of the women and the Dalit women, those who are interested in a political participations, and they are also be talking about their own rights and how it is happening. So I capture the narratives where it is very threatful narratives where women, some areas, they kidnap. In Maharashtra, when I visit in one village, there the Dalit woman is kidnapped because she is more vocal. She is talking about political rights. She is believe in the Ambedkar ideology, and she believe in the democratic values. So this is all the idea about that. How the women are suppressed, how the dominant man is suppressing the voices of the Dalit women. So whole process of the participation, it's not in a single word to get into the only idea that we wanted to go and take the decision. No, it is a process, and where the women are more stronger, and they are resisting the whole idea about the inequality in the village, and also they are asking for their own rights. They are asking for the education right. They are asking for the rights of health, and even they are asking for the social transformation. So this is the whole. So and the basic idea is that the dominant caste community across the Maharashtra, whenever you go to the any villages, realize that they have their own power, and the social and the Dalit women's social location, how they affect it. So you can go to the any village where women, and I think Jyoti Tai also we share many important incidents where she has also be part of the sarpanch. She is in the good position to take the decision. She is holding the rights, political rights, but she faces a lot of problems. So the narrative is talking about that they are threatened from the dominant man. They are raped somewhere. They have a threat for their families, and even the some women are kidnapped in the Maharashtra, and some women, some Dalit women are gone through the mental violence. So this is the whole pattern I observe in this process, and that is I'm just trying to write in my next book, which where I'm writing about the caste inequality, how it is emerged from the political process, and where the political process and caste-based violence. In caste-based violence, I just wanted to conclude two more important suggestions, important observation on the field where women are in 73 amendment and 73 amendment has given the uh, more power to the SC ST women. So they have a legal power. They can be a part of the political process. They can hold the procedures. But how this whole dynamics change when Dalit women are the participant in this process. So this is the political dynamics, and the second issue is the social or economic and political economy of Maharashtra. If you look at the political economy of Maharashtra, there are very less available for the Dalit women, and the people are considering, the dominant people are considering she doesn't have any resources, she doesn't have any power, but she still is very assertive. She still is very resisting power to ask the questions to the caste system. So this is the dynamic of the caste where everywhere in every village have, and the Dalit women are how we are going to deal with this. That is my all the topic and all the discussion is all around, and I'm looking at that way, how the women are supporting themselves also, and how they are supporting their own families, and also they are dealing with the Dalit community also. This is not a part of that only Dalit women as a resisting to the whole dominant caste people, but in that process also the Dalit man also is playing a different kind of role, because they are also trying that कि तुम्हें तो इस गांव में रहना है भाई, तो तुम्हें थोड़ा आवाज बंद करनी पड़े, that kind of a narrative. Second narrative is that कि तेरे को तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आता है, तूने कोई, हाँ तुम तो गांव के बाहर रहने वाले लोग हैं, तुम्हें तो एडमिन तो नहीं समझ में आएगा. सो दिस इज द एंड द सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस, आपका सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है आपके पास तो आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. That kind of a narratives are building around the discussion of the political participation, discussion of the caste violence, and that is affecting the life of Dalit women. And still Dalit women are resistant, they don't have any support from the mainstream feminist movement, they don't have a support from the community, and this is very important that they don't have, all the village are against them, so still they are fighting, and that is the spirit of Dalit women. And I must say that it is that spirit is giving me more insightful learning for me, because I know my history of my grandmother, how she fight with the caste system in a rural village, and that is the witness of all the caste violence. I am looking at this whole structure of a violent situation, and even I'm trying to recommend that how we are going to be dealing such kind of violence. I would like to thank Anna. That's the first Bahujan Women's Conference, and I would like to share. I share all my experiences. I have a lot of experience, but I think Jyoti Dai is there because she is dealing with some community, and all she has in courage to deal with the whole village. So she have a different kind of experience, and as a Dalit woman, I'm an insider of this process. But Jyoti Tai, she is a powerful woman who are dealing with the real situation. So these are the two different dynamics where always we need to be uh, look at the differently how political economy, political dynamics, and even the caste dynamics is coming to the front of Dalit women and how they are fighting. So over to, I think Jyoti Tai will be discussing more about this. And thank you Harshali, Trupti, and Anna that is invited me for this conference to share some insightful learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheetal Tai. So we are really waiting for your book whenever it will be getting published. And now I guess I want to pass on to Jyoti Tai. तो because शीतल ताई ने अभी उनके experiences बताए with her learning, so maybe now अगर अपने experiences बताएंगे तो it will be like more linked how it's academically and on the ground कैसे function हो रहा है. So Jyoti Tai, over to you.
हेलो, जय भीम सबको. मेरा नाम ज्योति मेश्रा. मैं महाराष्ट्र के गडचिरोली जिला से बिलोंग करती हूँ और मेरे गांव का नाम है कोटगल. वहाँ अभी भी रह रही हूँ और मैं एक सरपंच भी हूँ. अब मेरा काम एक सरपंच तो हो गए 10 साल हो गए, लेकिन अब मैं महिला राजसत्ता आंदोलन के तहत गडचिरोली जिले की डिस्ट्रिक्ट कोऑर्डिनेटर करके काम कर रही हूँ. वो हमारा काम भी पंचायत के चुने हुए जो महिलाएं रहती हैं उनके साथ भी है और गांव के लोगों के जो महिला रहती है उनके साथ भी है. और साथ में मैं अभी ट्रेनर का काम भी करती हूँ यशदा के तहत, झेडपी गडचिरोली के तहत और पंचायत राज मूल केंद्र के तहत वो मास्टर ट्रेनर का भी काम करती हूँ. ज्यादा तो मैं सरपंच और महिला सदस्यों को भी ट्रेनिंग देती हूँ. तो ये अभी मेरा काम चल रहा है. तो पहला सरपंच का अनुभव तो ये रहा कि मैं जब सरपंच बनी तो गांव में 55 साल के बाद अनुसूचित जाति यानी शेड्यूल कास्ट वुमन की सीट आई थी. तो मैं मास्टर ऑफ सोशल वर्क का शिक्षा ले रही थी. तो ये आने की वजह से फिर मैं खड़ी हो गई और चुन के भी आई. तो चुन के आने के बाद मैं और मेरे साथी हम दोनों ही या इधर के 2 आए और उधर के 9 मेंबर आए। तो इतना बड़ा ये हो गया कि ये कैसे चुन के आ गई थी, वो चुनाव में तो बहुत ही ज्यादा हो गया। तो ये सब होने के बाद भी, तो पहली मीटिंग थी, मैं सरपंच बनने के बाद भी पहली मीटिंग थी। तो वो 9 लोग मेंबर थे, तो वो बड़े चिड़े हुए थे कि हमारे 9 आ गए लेकिन हमारा सरपंच नहीं हुआ बनी। तो क्योंकि नहीं बनी, इसलिए कि उनके पास शेड्यूल कास्ट की कोई वुमन नहीं थी, इसलिए मैं बनी। तो वो बड़े चिढ़ के फिर क्या हुआ, पहले ही मासिक मीटिंग रहती है तो उनमें वो आर्थिक देवान घेवान बोलते हैं उनको मराठी में, आर्थिक देवान घेवान करने के लिए उनकी मंजूरी लेनी पड़ती है सभी मेंबर की। तो उन्होंने वो नहीं दिया। क्यों नहीं दिया? कि हम बहुमत में हैं तो हम नहीं देंगे, कुछ भी हो जाए लेकिन हम नहीं देंगे, हमें इनको काम करना ही नहीं है। तो ऐसा बोल के उन्होंने नहीं दिया। तो मैंने फिर इधर उधर वो मुद्दा उठाई। 6 महीने के बाद जिला परिषद, पंचायत समिति, विभागीय आयुक्त हमारे नागपुर के, तो वो सब पे मुद्दा उठाने के बाद 7-8 महीने के बाद फिर वो और एक मीटिंग लगाई झटके के तहत, और उन्होंने वो अभी मंजूरी दे दी कि अब ठीक है चलो करो। लेकिन दूसरे ही अगले ही महीने अविश्वास ठराव आ गया। यानी उनका ये भी था, मुद्दा ही था कि इनको किसी भी हालत में काम नहीं करने देना। ये ऐसे हो जाएगी कि ये अभी इनको काम ही नहीं करने देने के बाद ये वो खुद सीट खाली कर देगी, राजीनामा देगी और घर में बैठेगी। फिर हम चुनाव दूसरे लड़ेंगे और दूसरे वुमेन वहां लाएंगे। तो ये पूरा मुद्दा था। लेकिन उस समय मुझे इतना सीखने को भी मिला कि बहुत ही अभ्यास भी हुआ, कानून का भी अभ्यास हुआ, वो महाराष्ट्र का अधिनियम था उसका भी अभ्यास हुआ। लेकिन डर तो था कि मैं ये कर पाऊंगी या नहीं कर पाऊंगी। तो घर में मेरे मिस्टर साथ में थे, तो इसलिए, और मैं खुद भी पढ़ाया करती थी वो दिन। तो फिर हमने वो मुद्दा क्या बोलते वो कमिश्नर के यहाँ उठाया, और ये सब होने के बाद अविश्वास भी आया तो भी वो पारित हुआ। लेकिन मैं एक ही थी करके वो भी वैसा ही रह गया, यानी मैं सरपंच ही रही। तो फिर हमने, मुझे ये काम ही करने नहीं दे रहे हैं, तो कर्तव्य में कसूर करके एक अधिनियम में धारा है, तो उसके तहत मैंने वो 9 मेंबर को निलंबित करने के लिए कमिश्नर के पास अर्जी भेजी। तो वो 6 महीने के लिए निलंबित हो गए थे, और बाद में बोले कि नहीं अब मिलजुल के काम करना है, मिलजुल के काम करना है। तो मेरा 1 साल ऐसा ही गया। ग्राम सभा में भी ऐसे बोलने नहीं देते थे, ये कब की हो गई, ऐसा पूरे लोगों को भड़काते थे। गांव में 1 साल का माहौल था, चुनाव के बाद वो माहौल ही रहता है। तो ये ऐसा अभी लगता है कि वो राजनीति है, लेकिन उस वक्त मुझे रहता है कि नहीं, ये क्यों मैं फंस गई यहाँ सरपंच बन के, ऐसा लगता था। तो अभी कॉमन हो गया। तो अब हम दूसरों को बताते हैं कि ये कॉमन है, ये तो चलता ही रहता है, अभी हम बताते हैं। तो ये सब होने के बाद बहुत सीखने को भी मिला उस अनुभव से। तो दूसरा अनुभव भी यही है कि अभी मैं 2 बात बताने जा रही हूँ कि अभी मुद्दा यह है कि शेड्यूल कास्ट की औरतें यानी महिलाएं पॉलिटिक्स में है या नहीं, और कैसी है। तो पॉलिटिक्स के 2 प्रकार होते हैं। एक तो प्रत्यक्ष राजकारण, जिनको बोलते हैं चुनाव में खड़े रहना, वो प्रत्यक्ष बोलते हैं। और ये अप्रत्यक्ष, यानी वो सिर्फ पॉलिटिकल पार्टी वगैरह रहती है तो उनके साथ में खड़े रहते। तो ये प्रत्यक्ष चुनाव में वो खड़े रहते, वो अप्रत्यक्ष रहते जो साथ में रहते। तो प्रत्यक्ष का तो है ही, लेकिन अप्रत्यक्ष जो पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का जो राजकारण होता है, पॉलिटिक्स होता है, तो वो शेड्यूल कास्ट या शेड्यूल ट्राइब के कोई भी रहे, महिलाएं रहे यानी जेंट्स रहे, लेकिन ज्यादा तो महिलाएं। उस समुदाय का सेल है तो फिर आप रहो। समुदाय का सेल अगर है किसी भी पार्टी का, मैं किसी का भी नाम नहीं, सभी पार्टी में यही है, उस समुदाय का सेल है, विभाग है, तो आप रह सकती हो। और पूरे इसमें रह सकती हो मेंबर बन के, लेकिन प्रमुख व्यक्ति बनकर नहीं रह सकते आप। यानी ये सब है। तो और ये एक बात रहती है कि ठीक है वो सेल है, तो सेल कब आएगा काम? जब बड़े बड़े नेता लोग आएंगे, उनका आदर सत्कार होगा, तो आप गुलदस्ता लेके जाओ। क्यों जाओ? कि महिला होना चाहिए, ये हमारी इतनी महिलाएं हैं, सब जाति की है, सब समुदाय की है, इसलिए वो सेल सब के सब समुदाय की सेल। तो ये भी ये देखती हूँ, निरीक्षण करती हूँ, अभ्यास करती हूँ, तो ये भी एक मुद्दा मुझे बड़ा खटकता है। दूसरे तौर पर देखा जाए तो मैं अभी महिला राष्ट्रीयता आंदोलन पर काम करती हूँ, तो पंचायत की महिलाओं के साथ ही मेरा काम है, गांव के महिलाओं के साथ भी है। लेकिन अभी महिला राष्ट्रीयता आंदोलन का काम कर अभी मुझे 13-14 साल हो गए। तो अभी हम पंचायत फेडरेशन यानी पंचायती वो का महिलाओं का फेडरेशन कर रहे हैं। तो उनके साथ में हम बात करते हैं, बैठते हैं, तो अभी मुलाकात भी करते हैं, चर्चा भी करते हैं। तो अभी एक नई बात सामने आ गई है कि अभी क्या बोलते हैं, अगर लेडीज की सीट है सरपंच की, तो सीट है तो वो कैसे खाली रहेगी, यानी वो सीट को खाली कैसे रखना है, और उधर जो उप सरपंच है वो कैसे काम करेगा, यानी वो महिला सरपंच की सीट खाली रखते तो वो कैसे काम करेगा। अभी यही नीति चल रही है कि इसमें उनके साथ भी महिलाएं हैं, उनके साथ भी महिलाएं हैं। जिस कैटेगरी का सरपंच बनना है लेडी, इधर भी है उधर भी है। वो क्या करते हैं, इधर भी तहसीलदार आते हैं, लोग आते हैं, तो सरपंच की चुनाव होते हैं, तो इधर के भी भरते हैं, इधर के भी भरते हैं, यानी सरपंच के तरफ भी भरते हैं और विरोधी तरफ के भी भरते हैं। लेकिन अगर विरोधी का जो आया तो अपना भरेंगे, और सरपंच के इधर ज्यादा मतदान है तो विरोधी वालों को रहता है कि मैं तो होने वाली नहीं हूँ क्योंकि इधर ज्यादा है, तो वो फॉर्म वापस ले लेती है। वो फॉर्म वापस लेने के बाद क्या करते, वो सरपंच भी, यानी वो लेडीज भी, सरपंच नहीं, वो लेडीज भी फॉर्म वापस करती है। ऐसा अभी हमारे गढ़चिली में 2-3 केसेस हो रहे हैं, तो हम उसका अभ्यास भी करते हैं, क्यों हो रहे हैं, क्या कारण हो सकता है। तो ये भी अभी महिलाओं को बड़ी कठिनाई है कि आरक्षण है, लेकिन ये ऐसी भी रणनीति गांव के लोग कर रहे हैं कि वो पद ना संभाले, उप सरपंच करके नहीं संभाले। तो ये भी है। अभी शेड्यूल ट्राइब का जो मुद्दा आता है, तो ये पंचायत फेडरेशन के तहत ही ये मुद्दा निकला कि शेड्यूल ट्राइब में ज्यादा तो पढ़े लिखे होते नहीं है, तो फिर कास्ट वैलिडिटी, कास्ट सर्टिफिकेट तो कहाँ से लाएंगे, तो उनको चुनाव में खड़े ही नहीं रहते। ऐसे तो इंटर एरिया में भी ये मुद्दा बहुत सामने आती है कि वो पद ही खाली रहती है। तो और जिसके घर में जो लड़कियां भी पढ़ी लिखी होती है तो उनके साथ में रहते हैं। तो अभी ज्यादा तो ये बात ये भी है कि बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि शेड्यूल ट्राइब की महिलाएं जो लड़कियां है, अभी जो अविवाहित लड़कियां है, वो भी सरपंच बन रही है, मेंबर बन रही है। ये भी बहुत ही गौरव की बात है। लेकिन साथ में जो जिसके किसी के कोई गांव में अगर पढ़ी लिखी नहीं होती है तो वहां के भी सीट खाली रहती है मेंबरों की। तो ये भी मुद्दा सामने आता है। तो ये तो हो गया पंचायत फेडरेशन का। अभी मैं आती हूँ ट्रेनिंग देती हूँ मैं, तो ये भी अनुभव रहा है कि हम ट्रेनिंग देते वक्त यशोदा की तरफ से क्रांति ज्योति नाम का ये ट्रेनिंग देते हैं, जो बहुत ही फेमस है। जो अभी आरक्षण के तहत तो महिलाएं आती है, उनको कोई अनुभव नहीं होता है, तो वो उनको लगता है कि हम ये काम पंचायती का काम नहीं कर सकते, तो उनकी हिम्मत बढ़ाने के लिए ये क्रांति ज्योति प्रशिक्षण है, खास तौर पर गानी है, खेल है, यानी सब एक्टिविटी है उसमें, खेलते खेलते कैसे उनको पढ़ाना है। तो बड़ा अच्छा वो क्रांति ज्योति ट्रेनिंग का मॉडल भी है। तो उसमें एक हम भ्रमाचे फुगे नाम का एक खेल लेते हैं, यानी भ्रम भ्रम के फुगे। वो ये होता है कि अपने समाज में या अपने आसपास में, या अभी आप राजनीति में आए हो, पॉलिटिकल में आए हो, सरपंच बने हो, मेंबर बने हो, तो ऐसे कोई शब्द आपको सुनाने के लिए मिलते हैं कि नहीं नहीं ये ऐसे बोलते हैं, यानी टांट बोलते हैं। तो आपके ऊपर ऐसे कोई टांट होते हैं तो बहुत ही टॉन्ट निकल के आते हैं। महिलाएं बोलते हैं कि देखो सरपंच बन गई तो कैसे चलती है, मटमटे कंधे पे बैग लग रही है, अभी ये क्लिप लगाती है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा घर के बाहर रहती है, इनको घर का काम नहीं करने को होना, बड़ी शहानी हो गई है। यानी ऐसे बहुत ही कितने दिन के लिए सरपंच बनी है, 5 साल के बाद तो घर में ही रहना है, कि फिर क्यों इतनी इतराती है, क्यों जाती है ऑफिस में, जाती है तो क्यों ग्राम सेवक के गाड़ी पे बैठ के जाती है। अगर ग्राम सेवक के गाड़ी में नहीं बैठी, पति के साथ में बैठ के जाती है तो अपने पति को ही ले जाती है। तो ये चैलेंज है महिलाओं को कैसे काम करना। ऐसे बहुत ही बातें वो सब बताते हैं कि क्या है, क्या लिखते हो आप, यानी आपको कहीं टान सुनने को आया, आपके ऊपर आया तो ये लिख लो। अगर ये अच्छा टांट है आपके है तो ये रख लो, अगर आपके खिलाफ है तो ये फोड़ दो। यानी उनको भ्रमाचे फुगे बोलते हैं। ये सब भ्रम है, सामाजिक भ्रम है महिलाओं के प्रति, तो ये सारे फोड़ दो, इनका निषेध कर दो। तो ये बहुत अच्छा क्रांति ज्योति प्रशिक्षण का खेल है। तो
thank you so much Jyoti Tai. Jyoti Tai has really highlighted so Jyoti Tai, I'll just मैं आपने जो बोला बस उसको ट्रांसलेट करके ऑडियंस तक पहुंचाना चाहूंगी. So Jyoti Tai has had she has majorly spoke about her journey on the ground and how she has evolved as sarpanch and the various issues she was facing and the community is facing, specifically in the domain of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women. She has also covered ground-based politics. What are the different challenges which women are specifically facing, not just as a women, but as also if they are coming from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. And then, and she also spoke a way forward that that there are so much ground issues women are facing when they are into a political spaces, not just, as I said, patriarchy, but also from within the family as well, because they do not have strong support system to resist against this patriarchal issues within the society and this orthodox structure which is there out there. So Jyoti Dai, so thank you so much कि आपने आपके experiences share किए. We have understood कि कहाँ ये gap it's still there और इस पे बहुत जरूरी है कि आगे इसे कैसे ले जाना है. तो शायद अब हम हमारे थर्ड पैनलिस्ट के पास जाएंगे, उनसे सुनेंगे एंड देन हम इसके ऊपर फिर आगे थोड़ा चर्चा करेंगे कि इस इश्यूज को आगे कैसे ले जा सकते हैं और क्या करना चाहिए. सो आई वुड लाइक टू पास ऑन टू प्रोफेसर विदिशा. ओवर टू यू विदिशा.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana, for organizing this really important conversation. And it's been both inspiring and humbling to listen to all the women who've spoken before me and the really fierce work that they've been doing. So I'm a US-based academic. I'm a political scientist. And I want to talk just briefly about a research project that I've just started. I've been doing research on Indian diaspora politics in the US for about 10 years now, so it's been quite a while. But this new project that I want to do is tracing the history of Dalit and Bahujan activism in the United States and looking at organizations and activists here who have tried to raise questions relating to caste discrimination within the Indian American community. in the last few years, these issues have come a little bit more to the forefront. There's been some questions raised about caste discrimination within some of the US-based information technology companies. I was thinking actually about, Bhumika, when she talked about bonded labor in Chhattisgarh, because just last year, there's been this case of a prominent temple in New Jersey bringing in bonded labor from Gujarat, not paying them, and that's become the center of quite a big lawsuit. And also, when I speak to my students about Indian politics and American politics, I sometimes read quotations from Dr. Ambedkar about racism in the US, about caste discrimination in India, and about what he saw as the challenges facing democracy in both countries. And many of my students, who are almost all American, will say, oh my God, this guy gets America so well. So I think there's some really important intersections between kind of understanding the histories of these two countries that I want to bring to the fore. But the challenge that I've found is that the Indian American community, I think, is quite high on its own success in the US, right? We're so affluent, the Google CEO is Indian, and the Microsoft CEO is Indian, and the vice president is Indian. And so when we try to get them to confront the problems within the community, whether it's in the US or to confront problems in India, there's this resistance because it doesn't fit their image of what India should be in the United States, right? So when I speak to them, they just don't want to talk about it, and I think that goes to some of the issues that Sheetal raised also about how people, they're okay talking about bad things, but they don't want to talk about the caste angle in it. And the other challenge that I'm finding in this research is that there's just been a lack of systematic knowledge building in the US. And so I'm kind of trying to dig up this history of how caste consciousness in the Indian American community has developed over time. And there just isn't a lot of documentation about it. A few years ago, I wrote a book on the journey of Indian women in the US in terms of their professional careers. And of about 30 women that I interviewed, only 2 were from Bahujan Dalit communities. And the rest of them, when I would ask them about, their own caste consciousness and how they viewed their position of caste privilege in India or the United States, there was this immediate, I don't know what you're talking about. I know about gender discrimination. I know about the problems of being a person of color in the US. I know that there's problems facing women in India, but caste was just not, it was just not a thing that they wanted to even say. And so, one of the questions that was given to the panelists is talking about how Bahujan women are contributing to education, activism, journalism, politics. And I think in my work, which is an intersection of politics and education, what I'm hoping is just my contribution is just to be here and to kind of raise awareness of these issues that there seems to be a real barrier to just even acknowledging. And I think making people, forcing people to acknowledge it, not necessarily saying you're the one to blame, but just to say, well, we're all part of this. We're all complicit in this system in different ways is what I hope my contribution is. And my other contribution that I hope as an educator is just getting my own students to see these parallel and intersecting journeys between India and the US, because I teach democratic politics. I think it is I think it is well known that neither India nor the US have really held themselves up to their own stated democratic ideals very well. So I think in education, there's a lot of cross currents that young people, the youth of today in both countries could learn from if they just understand the two countries' intersecting journeys. So I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidisha. That was really great. Your work is really inspiring. You did spoke about democratic politics, and that's another point of discussion, that how democratic the countries are really, not just India, but it's everywhere. And then when it comes to the ground level, how Jyoti Tai was sharing her stories and how Sheetal Tai was sharing her experiences and journey, it gives intersectionality within that. Does that democracy really exist when we do not talk about caste or race within it? So that's really interesting. And another point I just wanted to say here is how when we talk about race, then in American politics, it at least spoke, or people do have conversation on the table. But when we talk about caste, it's so shameful that people even don't talk about it. So that's really something which really needs to be worked a lot again from the ground. Then we have more 15 minutes, right, Truptidai? So we can now we'll take some questions. So before that, I would like to ask any of the panel who wanna go first. Like, we did talk about caste, gender intersectionalities, and how caste-based violence is there in the political space, on the ground, on also in the academic space, in political domain. So if you can throw a little light that what can be the way forward, how it can be look forward, because when we say Bahujan, even Bahujan parties in India, there are n number of parties within it, and we are not able to mobilize together. So what can be the way forward when we see through a women-centric position? I would just like to say this in Hindi for Jyotitai. Jyotitai, अब हम क्वेश्चन आंसर्स ले रहे हैं, तो एक क्वेश्चन ऐसा है कि हमने देखा कि इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी में विमेन का, शेड्यूल कास्ट और शेड्यूल ट्राइब विमेन के साथ में भेदभाव हो रहा है, ग्राउंड पे भी और अपर चेम्बर में भी, लोअर हाउस में भी. तो उसको किस तरह से, उस पे क्या कर सकते हैं, कौन से टेक्निक्स या क्या ट्रेनिंग्स होनी चाहिए, या ये इस गैप को किस तरह से हम कम कर सकते हैं, तो इस पे हम थोड़ा सा बात करेंगे. ये एक क्वेश्चन है. सो मे बी वी कैन स्टार्ट फ्रॉम शीतल ताई, एंड देन प्रोफेसर Vishwas, and then Jyoti Tai. So Sheetal Tai, over to you.
First, to understand what is the reason of the caste-based violence. We are talking about a gender-based violence. We know the gender position in the society, social constructed values and everything. But when you're talking about the caste, how you're looking at the caste-based violence? There is the three main reason. One is very important reason is that untouchability. And section 17 is always talking about the untouchabilities not still exist, and everything is people are democratically saying that there is no untouchability still. But when you're looking at the village, there is a practice still is going on, and it is indirect practices also is there. There is one reason. The second reason is all about the impurity. The Dalit women's body and Dalit women's structure of body and even images is the impure, and there is a stigma always Dalit women carry in the village. And third, her sexuality is targeted. That is the three main reasons as define the caste-based violence in the village. The sexuality, they always talk about those women, and even the Jyoti Tai has given the very interesting example that my husband is supportive me. He is not restricting me, but the villages people have a different dynamics toward regarding the caste system, because I have got the lot of experiences and the narratives from the Dalit women, the mostly Dalit women's characters assignations. There's a bad character women, they don't have any chastity, they are always rude, their voices are very rude, they are more resistance, but they're always, their assertion is converted always in the anger, so they are very angry women. And then when you're talking of the sexuality, they're open for everyone. So this is a stigma, because Dalit women's body is open for everyone. So dominant man easily can pass the comments on her sexuality. So that sexuality comment always degrade their self and broke their self-confidence. So they always struggle with that only. So, and this is very common platform, and it's a common what I said, that is common comments. So whenever you go to the, not only talking in the Maharashtra, I was visited in the Uttar Pradesh also, and even in the Haryana, they have different kinds of narratives, the different kinds of comments. The bhangin aayi hai dekho re. It is called as a bhangin. It means that they are targeting your sexuality through their caste. So this is the difference between the gender and the caste. So that is the reason we need to understand the caste. So in way forward messages, where I am looking at the three levels. One, I wanted to make the responsible for the state. That is my first agenda. Second agenda, I am looking at the National Women Commission. Is the last 15 years in working in Indian democracy, and they're talking about the women's rights, but they have lots of enough funds to train or sensitize the people on the different issues, but they're never conscious about the caste related. So we are planning to do, and I have we're doing, and I'm dealing with the National Women Commission, and where we are always raising the question about how we can plan some kind of a training where we wanted to make the other women's sensitive toward the Dalit and other women's. And in the Bahujan women, I specifically target at least SC, ST women have a right, they have a act, they can implement, they can ask for the justice through the Atrocity Act. But when you're looking at the different kinds of atrocity happen with the nomadic tribe, they don't have any other place. So we are looking at that in the Bahujan platform. We are looking at the nomadic tribe women, Dalit women. How can they can SC, ST women, they can come together and ask for the different demand. And third, we are looking at the intervention where we are looking at the women-centric intervention, where it's very rare possibility in the social work and the sociology, and even the whenever you go to the any kind of academics in the women's studies also, we are engaged with the autobiography of the Dalit women, but we are not engaged in, or we are not interested to understand the different theoretical perspective. So we need to create a different theoretical perspective, and that since I am taking a more initiative how to develop the women-centric perspective. And in women-centric perspective, we are looking first, women should be a center point, and the second, we need to understand the subjective experience of the women. So my understanding is just to capture the narratives, which is always raise the voices of women. So whether it is a nomadic tribe women, whether it's a scheduled tribe women, even the Muslim women, they can also raise the question. So this is the whole idea about my way forward. And also I'm working with the National Women Commission. Even recently I worked with the National Women Policy. It is very problematic policy, state women policy in Maharashtra, but they never mentioned the role of the police, how to deal with the atrocity cases. So we drafted one article, we drafted one demand for the state that they should at least mention the role of talking about only Dalit, but those who are a Bahujan women. So this is the way forward. I think that can change, but it is an experimental level. I did a lot of experiment, but 1-2 experiment is also successful when we have filed the FIR on atrocity cases. So I think we can work on it, and it is collective work. It's not my independent work. So your contribution, your experience also can be helped. Even the Vidisha was also talking about how the intersectionality is connected and how you can go through these democratic values. That can also be contributed in my work. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheetal Tai. That was really informative and thoughtful. I would like to pass on to Vidisha.
Yeah, what Sheetal said was really inspiring and powerful to me. And, what she said about the way Dalit women's bodies are seen, they're just there, they're impure. I think many Black women in the US would nod their heads and say this is exactly how we're portrayed in society, in media, in history, just this kind of hyper-sexualization combined with you're hypersexual, but you're also like impure and disgusting at the same time. And there's this particular intersection there. So that was really powerful to me. I would say, I think being South Asian women, there is just so many multiple layers of shame that we're taught to deal with throughout the time, right? There's just shame because you're female. Then there's shame because you have, because of your caste. And there's shame if you leave the house and someone says something to you or does something to you, kind of hide that, and all of these senses of shame I certainly inherited. I mean, my mother, who's definitely a feminist, also told me that I shouldn't talk about my caste to anybody who's not of that community, because then people will look at you differently, which is true. I mean, they would look at me differently. So it took me a long time to be kind of open about that. And I think she said that from a place of protection as well. So, I would say that there are so many ways in which we really need to work at getting rid of those layers of shame. And for me, in my work, I would say it's important for me when I work with younger women to have openness about that, whatever their racial identity or their gender identity, to sort of reach out to them and say that, you can own who you are, you can own whatever layers you want to own, reject whatever layers you want to own, but you can do that with openness and always with confidence. And I think that's a really really, really difficult thing for South Asian women in particular to deal with. Yeah, thank you.
थैंक यू विदेशा. ज्योति ताई, आपको आवाज आ रही है ना?
हाँ
हाँ ताई.
तो सही बात है. एक तो जेंडर की वजह से भी है और क्या बोलते वो जेंडर ही है और कास्ट दोनों की बेसिस से वायलेंस होता है. लेकिन ज्यादातर वायलेंस हरेसमेंट का ही होता है. पहली बात तो हरेसमेंट क्यों होता है? सबको लगता है ये महिला है, शेड्यूल कास्ट का है, तो ये हमारे ऊपर यानी हमसे भी आके निकल जाए. तो इसके लिए वो मेंटली टार्चर करते हैं कि नहीं, आप 5-6 साल है तो 5 साल ही रहो, आगे मत जाओ. तो ये मुद्दा जरूर रहता है. और दूसरी ये कि जब लेडीज की बात आती है, जेंडर की बात आती है, तो बोलते हैं महिला है तो महिला जैसी रहो, आप स्टडी भी मत करो, आप ज्यादा बोलो भी मत. उनको यही लगता है, गांव के लोगों को यानी सबको लगता है कि ये महिला है, क्या करती है, कुछ कर नहीं पाएगी, इनको करना ही नहीं है. मेंबर है, आदमी मेंबर है तो वो सब संभालेगी, ये ज्यादा क्यों बोलती है, आगे आगे क्यों करती है. तो इसका कारण भी ये मुझे लगता है कि हमारे घर से ये शुरू होता है कि हम सभी लड़कियों को घर से शुरू कर देते हैं कि नहीं, तू लड़की है तो ज्यादा मत सोच, तू लड़की है तो निर्णय मत ले, तू लड़की है ये मत करो. तो ऐसी घर के सभी को आदत बनती जाती है. खुद वो महिलाओं को ये आदत भी हो जाती है कि नहीं, पंचायत में वो मेंबर है, उप सरपंच है तो वही संभालेंगे, पंचायत में वो ग्राम सेवक है वही संभालेंगे, है संभालने वाले. तो ये भी हमारी एक मेंटली होती है. तो ये से थोड़े थोड़े पंचायत में मेंटली टार्चर बहुत करते हैं. इसके ऊपर ही हमारे समुदाय के, अम्बेडकरी समुदाय के लोग यानी वो परिवर्तनवादी है, लिखे पढ़े होते हैं, सोचते हैं. तो ये होने की वजह से उनको लगता है कि ये अम्बेडकरी समुदाय के लोग बहुत ही शाहाने हो गए हैं. तो ऐसा भी होता है. तो इनको आगे अभी मिल गई सीट, लेकिन अभी आगे जाने ही नहीं देना है. ये अगर महिला पंचायत समिति में अभी ये अच्छी तरह से काम कर रही है, तो अगर पंचायत समिति में ये चली गई तो ये हमारे ऊपर भी जा सकती है. ये हमको ये पूछने वाली नहीं है. तो हमने खड़ा किया है, यानी हमारे ग्रुप में खड़ा किया है, तो ये हमारी सबकी सुन, तो ये चलता है, ये होता है.
So I'll be giving a closing statement with this. So thank you so much, Jyoti Tai. आपने experiences आपके share किए और way forward हमें समझाया. So capturing from all the panelists, I would like to put forward this summary, which maybe we really need to work together. I really highly appreciate, Sheetal Tai, the way you shared your plans and how it is important to work at every level. And you shared your experiences with like a way forward, saying how it's need to be worked through policy level, through interventions and strengthening those policies which are currently existing, and then how it need to be taken forward. And then after listening to all the panels and coming from a similar kind of political background, where I have worked as a campaign for Mamata Banerjee, and then worked around seeing how Savarna women are seen when their campaigns are done, and how Dalit Bahujan women's campaigns are done differently, and experiencing it personally. All experiences with all the three panelists were talking, it reminded me that I was seeing similar kind of stuff in the upper house as well. And women just not have to face a fight against patriarchy, but also within caste structure from the family and the society. And then now I realize that, and I feel that we all, the women from like the academic structure and the ground structure is not different. You have to collaborate together, and maybe a common global women federation can be formed of women and non-binary people, so that the women from the ground who are there, who are so capable, like Jyoti Tai and all other young women who are there out there in India as well, who want to participate in political spaces, we should give them we should at least try to create a stronger support system, who are gonna stand in the current election or are aspiring to do that as well. There should be a global funding which needs to be reach out to them. That's another objective which is coming forward. And there are n number of objectives which were coming, like it's just not providing finance and support in through party, but as well you women has to be exactly educated, not just policy level, but also personalizing understanding out, supporting them that how a leader should look like. And there are a number of different organizations who are working on the ground and with caste-based issues, so maybe they can be collaborated together as well, and then this can be portrayed or this can be taken forward in the academic spaces to structure more properly, and maybe we can help women to participate more in political spaces and assert through their own identities and through own struggle. So yeah, this was the panel for politics. Thank you so much for for all the panelists who have joined today. It was really great to have you.